Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
Jim Blasingame, he's the cyber king of small business. Search Google for small business expert, and he's tops on the list.
I guess that makes you number one.
He's number one on Google and number one in our hearts.
Aww.
He's Jim Blasingame, the small business advocate.
Welcome back. 34 after. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thanks for being part of my day. Always a pleasure to continue to be with you. I'm very excited about our good friend Charles W. Kadlec being back on the show. Chuck is a longtime member of our Brain Trust. In fact, a founding member of our Brain Trust going all the way back to 1998. He's the author of Dow 100,000 Fact or Fiction, and he's one of the guys who's keeping the concepts of liberty front and center with his work these days, and he's our good friend Chuck Kadlec. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks, Jim. It's great to be back with you.
Good to have you back. Liberty, that's what's the website again?
The Community of Liberty.
Community of Liberty. I don't know why I always forget that. Community of Liberty.
Yeah, our first chapter is in Irvine, California. So
right.
Anyone in our area.
.com?
No, communityliberty.org.
.org. Okay. All right.
.org. Yep.
Yep. So check that out. Okay, Chuck, you. I'm sure you were plastered. Your eyes were affixed to the television for 2 straight weeks with the Republican and the Democrat conventions. You're one of the smartest guys I know on economic issues. Tell us what you thought.
Oh, well, unfortunately, I like many of your listeners, I was not plastered during the Democratic convention because I was on a trip. But I kept track of it. Well, here's what I thought. I think the two conventions really dramatize the differences right now in the two parties and the direction they would take the country. I was absolutely struck by the Republican conventions, the number of speakers who reference the principles of the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence. And I hadn't heard that in I don't know in any convention where speaker after speaker, spoke about those things. Like Marco Rubio said, America was founded on the idea that every person has God-given rights.
Do you think that resonates with the average American these days? Do you think the average American is paying attention, and when they hear those things, that has any kind of gravity with them, any kind of connection with them?
There's no polls on that issue, but
I don't think any American would say I'm against it, but I just wonder how many people are moved by that language.
Well, that's a great question, because some say that we've lost the story of America, and American people aren't moved by that phrase.
I'm afraid we are. I'm afraid we have.
I think the poll, let me put it this way, the fact that the Governor Romney and President Obama are very close in the polls, President Obama being slightly ahead right now, was certainly consistent with that, because there's no doubt that the alternative at the Democratic convention was to delete the whole notion of God-given rights or God-given potential from their platform.
Which is all over our founding documents, and they not only that, but I watched it. They booed when they tried to put it back in.
I watched the clip.
God was booed 3 times.
That's right. I watched the clip as well.
The vote. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. The vote went up 3 times. It never passed. It was rammed through, and on the last, and when it was rammed through, they booed for God. They booed God. Now, folks, I'm just reporting this. This is what happened.
I just watched the clip. It is exactly what happened. And the chair, Mayor Villagrosa from Los Angeles, was stunned on the first 2. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So he was about to say, gee, I guess it doesn't pass, which was to put God back into the platform, God-given potential.
If it hadn't passed, it would not have gotten back in, right?
Yeah, because it needed a 2/3 vote, and it was about half and half. It was a voice vote.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it was also, in the motion, was to replace Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. They were both there. But nonetheless, they sent out looked like a sort of an administrative official
Right,
walked out,
right.
a woman, and whispered in his ear.
Just pass it.
And he took one more vote, and the result was about roughly 50-50, maybe a little more no's than yes. And he goes, passed. We had 2/3. Of course, it
because it was already put up on. It was already on the teleprompter. It had already been written down that it was going to pass.
Yeah, well, he was stunned. You could see the look on his face
Right.
in the first vote. He
was a deer in the headlights. So
he, like me, could not believe that the people in that platform were voting against putting God-given potential back in their platform.
But now, let's differentiate between God and the founding documents. I mean, I really do believe that there are people who are not so connected to God, but who are patriots, who want to be patriots.
Yes.
And so I do think, I am worried, folks. I mean this. I'm worried that we have allowed our ability to be moved by the founding story, that's eroded over the last few years, and that's not good for America. Quick break, 22. Right back with Chuck Kadlec. I'm Jim Blasingame. Stay with me.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved.